in on this. I first want to thank John Arrow, and Brett Parsons, and Jen Nichols, and Mark David, who just stole the first 15 minutes of my talk. I want to thank Book Soup, who are outside and who have been incredibly supportive to this book. I want to thank, I suspect, I can't see any of you, but I suspect that there are a lot of brokers out there, and I could not have written this book if it wasn't for the broker community in Los Angeles, who were extraordinarily generous and gave me the sense that Los Angeles was going to prove to be a much different egg to crack than New York, because in New York, people are paranoid, secretive, often unfriendly. And I found much to my delight that people in Los Angeles were exactly the opposite. I felt incredibly welcome here. And besides John Arrow, I want to single out one other person, because in a very real way he inspired on real estate, and that's Jeff Highland of Hilton Highland. When I was first approached to write a book about Los Angeles, I did what I always do, which is to look for everything that had ever been written on the subject. And I found out about a book that was published in about 1980 called The Great Estates of Beverly Hills by Jeff and another gentleman named Charles Lockwood. And I went looking for a copy, and I found out that the only way I could get one, because they were very rare, was to buy a used copy for about $1,000. And then luckily I found out that Jeff had updated and re-released that, or was about to re-release that book, and it's this $25 mammoth thing, and anytime one of the comment trolls on Amazon says that real estate doesn't have enough pictures, I say to them, just go buy Jeff Highland's book and open it up and read on real estate with Jeff Highland next to it, and you'll have pictures, and you'll have my book as well. Jeff was an incredible help. I kind of consider him the consigliere on real estate. I also want to thank the people of Southern California who made on real estate a bestseller, which is just the ultimate validation of what you do, to know that people are buying it and reading it. I want you all to be sure you understand two things. First of all, I've never spoken with pictures before, so if I hesitate or stumble, that's why. And as Mark told you, I don't write about architecture. I'm not going to talk about architecture. I write social history, and architecture and real estate really are the window through which I came to view society. And that began with my earlier book, 740 Park. And so I thought I should start by telling you how I came to write 740 Park. I'd written a book called Genuine Authentic about a fashion designer named Ralph Lauren. It began as an authorized biography, and within 6 months it became an unauthorized biography. Because it seemed that although Mr. Lauren promised me that it would be my book, all he wanted to do was control what went into it. And it turned out to be a very good thing that Ralph didn't cooperate with me, because I was able to do it freely and not have to worry about the fact that he thinks his name is Ralph Lauren and he looks like Gary Cooper. And having finished this book, in which I discovered during research that Ralph Lauren, who was always considered to be a fake aristocrat, actually was a real aristocrat, but a real Jewish aristocrat, who was, his family had married into the line of the single most distinguished family in European Judaism, going all the way back to the 16th century in Poland. The descendants of Rabbi Yom Tov Lippman Heller are so many and so accomplished that there's actually a 3-volume set of books that's just their genealogy. But nonetheless, Ralph is seen as a fake American aristocrat, and having finished that book, I thought it would be really fun to write a book about real American aristocrats. We live in a classless society, and there's no such thing, but in fact there is such a thing. And so my initial thought was to write a book about a single American family coming over on Mayflower, and my publisher at the time waved garlic at me, made the sign of the cross, and said, "You can't possibly do that." Because nobody cares about wasps anymore, and wasps don't have any power anymore. And George Bush at that moment was running against John Kerry, both social registered families, so I scratched my head. But the publisher had the money and the power, and I had to come up with a different way to write social history. And what they suggested to me was that a microcosm was good, but find a different microcosm, and one that would let a little bit of light in, that was more than wasps. And the next day I was driving down Fifth Avenue in a taxi, looking at that relentless march of square, beautiful Candela and Carpenter apartment houses. And I passed one where I knew that a friend of mine, a Jewish real estate developer, had just sold his apartment for some insane number of millions of dollars to Paul Allen, the co-founder of Microsoft. And I thought, okay, this is it, you know, obviously built by wasps, then occupied by Jews, and now geeks. And so I went to my publisher and I proposed that. Then I went home and I called some real estate people and some social arbiter types and rapidly came to what is the best building in New York. Not the best building in terms of any one criteria, but the best building in terms of the best occupants, the best architecture, but most of all, best narratives. I wanted to tell a great story, and I wanted to tell a rich story in many ways. And that's how I came to 740 Park, the richest apartment house in New York. I don't write about real estate even. I write about the people who consume high-end real estate. Because through that real estate, you can learn a lot about people and you can learn a lot about social and cultural ambition. After 740 Park, I had a momentary lapse. I didn't want to be known as the apartment house guy. Because what was I going to do next? And I was fairly limited. I was looking at the world through blinders, and I thought, I don't want to do 825th. I don't want to do River House. Even though Ann Bass had said to the art dealer Richard Feigen, oh, thank God you didn't do my building. I didn't want to do her building. And I thought, well, maybe I'll write a book about something else. I'll do another biography of a building, but I won't do an apartment building. And I moved away from real estate, and I wrote a book about the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Bad mistake. Unlike the residents of an apartment building, the Board of Trustees of the Metropolitan Museum of Art have common interests beyond the building. And they were not at all pleased. And the result was an outpouring of vitriol, a 17-page letter from a law firm that I call Curvass, Swine, and Moore. Someone was suggesting that I get a t-shirt that just said pariah on the front. And I thought that it would probably be a good idea to get out of Dodge for a while. And so I suggested to my publisher, thinking, well, gee, if I'm going to get out of Dodge for a while and I'm going to look up somewhere nice, then I write a book about the south of France. And it was still that Iraq War hangover, and the French were, notably nicknamed cheese-eating surrender monkeys by the New York Post. And once again, I was faced with a publisher making some of the cross-wrapping something garlic and running in the other direction. And he said, why don't you do LA? And I thought, well, okay, the food might not be as good, but the weather's great, and there are palm trees. Sure, and I've been to LA a few times, a lot, in the 70s particularly, and then back and forth as a journalist over the years. But oddly, I hadn't been here in 9 years. I had been going, I had friends in San Francisco, and I spent most of the last decade in San Francisco. But I came out here, and I knew right from the beginning, before I did a bit of research, that there was something that I didn't want to do. I didn't want to write a celebrity book. I didn't want to write a Hollywood book. And I knew that there was a distinction between Hollywood, the idea of this place that's in most people's minds, including a lot of people who live here, and the reality of the community. So I wanted to really look for something other than maps of the stars homes. Here's Beverly Hills. Here's Holmby Hills. I set out to correct what I took without knowledge as a misimpression. And what I think I want to talk to you about today is how I set about doing that. I think that the backstory of books is kind of interesting. And so in order to do this book, I had to go all the way back to the ranchos of Los Angeles and the Spanish who came from Mexico and settled this place. And with all due respect to the academics and the socially correct, I didn't want to write a book about the end of Indian culture. I wanted to write a book about the rise of current culture here. And so that led me inexorably to Beverly Hills Public Library. I found in Beverly Hills Library, in the UCLA Library, in the USC Library, a wealth of information about the early days of the communities that I finally settled on. For instance, this is the original subdivision map of Beverly Hills, which seen from above is in the shape of a woman's body. The story, the legend is that it's Clara Bow's body, but at the time that this map was drawn up, Clara Bow was about 1 year old. So it's clearly not Clara Bow. And as I was doing this research, although I knew it was necessary, and I knew that some of the opening pages of the book had to set the scene and explain how this area grew and how it went from ranchos to this, that had been done before many, many times. And people had written about Maria Rita Valdez, the first Beverly Hills homeowner, and John Wolskill, who owned Rancho San Jose de Buenos Aires, which is all of Westwood, Holmby, Bel Air. And that wasn't my real motion. That wasn't my real mission. My real mission was to write more about the last 75 years. And to do that, while I was doing this early research, I began the process of elimination. I started looking at houses and trying to decide which houses I was going to focus on, because unlike 740 Park, Los Angeles can't be summed up by a single building. You can't do, what's it called, Wilshire Terrace, the first co-op, where the rich people of Los Angeles go to die. So I went to Highland, I went through Sam Waters' books on houses in LA, and I compiled a list of 50 or 60 houses. And I started looking into who had owned those houses, and I began narrowing them down. And that was a very hard thing to do because the gates were closed. This is 10,640 Bellagio, which is the best known as the Hilton Estate Casa Encantada, now owned by Gary Winnick of Global Crossing. And here's another one. This is, I think, 10,060 Sunset. Just to go off on a tangent, funny story, I pulled up to this gate, which is South Carolwood Drive. Yeah. Only South Carolwood Drive doesn't exist anymore because there were only really 3 houses off of South Carolwood, and one man bought them all, a man named Roland Arnell, and somehow managed to close South Carolwood. So all there is this little cul-de-sac on a very dangerous curve on Sunset. And so I tucked my car in there one day, and not this gate, but a gate just next to it opened, and a man in uniform came out. And I said, is that the Jane Mansfield house? I just wanted to act like a stupid tourist. And he said, I can answer that question. And I said, why? And he said, because the owner of the estate wouldn't like it. Would you drive away now? That's what you face when you come as Mark said, voyeur. And you want to write about these places, which are all gated and hedged and very difficult to learn about. But again, I wasn't interested in the houses. I leave that to shelter magazines and to realist soccer. I was interested in who built them, who created the communities that contained them, who lived in them subsequently, what the houses meant to them, what they symbolized. Not so much how they changed the houses as how living in them changed the residents. And so the story had to start with the fascinating founders of the communities that I decided to focus on, because LA is such, again, 740, vertical, contained. New York City, vertical, contained. Los Angeles, sprawling, uncontained. How do you do this? Do you do Hancock Park? Do you do Silver Lake? Do you do Malibu, Brentwood, Pacific Palisades? And I quickly narrowed it down and decided that I actually had to follow in Jack Island's footsteps and do Beverly Hills, Holmby Hills, and Bel Air, the 3 contiguous communities that represent the nexus of real estate desire in this part of the country. And so I began to look at who had created these communities. And there were men like Henry Edwards Huntington, the only one who really didn't have anything to do with the communities, but helped form the group that formed Rodeo, which formed Beverly Hills. The leader of the group that formed Beverly Hills is Max Whittier. And these are the people who have streets named after them, and most people don't know that Whittier is named after Mark Whittier, and that Burton Way is named after Burton Green. And the Doheny Drive is named after Edward Doheny the Longman. These are the gates of Greystone, the house that he built for his son. And Charles Canfield, who actually died before the community was a success, and is truly unknown because Burton Green was a real glory hound. And after all of his partners died off, Burton Green basically appointed himself the sole founder of Beverly Hills. So there was a great story there. And here are the Jans brothers who created Westwood, Little Holmby, and Holmby Hills, and as well as several of the great communities in the valley which they owned. And Alfonso Bell, who founded Bel Air, who I don't have a picture of, for which I apologize. Charles Kennedy, oh, no, wait, okay, sorry, pictures are a little out of order. This is Harold Jans's swimming pool. And this is a perfect example of, this pool was in that compound at what is now 141 South Carrollwood, but it used to also include 10,100 Sunset and 10,060 Sunset. This house, if you read the maps of the stars' homes or the literature, or you search it on the internet, belonged to Esther Williams, the movie star. This is how movie stars have kind of cast their spell to the point where the fantasy has transcended reality. Now, in fact, movies were made at Harold Jans's house, which had this wonderful swimming pool. But I couldn't find Esther Williams' name in any of the chain of ownership, which I pulled on each of these houses. And I finally called Esther Williams to say, what's the story here? And her assistant answered the phone. And I could hear Esther in the background because she wouldn't deign to pick up the phone. And I said, did you ever live in this house? No, I never lived in this house. Did you ever own the house? No, I never owned the house. And I kept pressing her, and she finally remembered that one day she had filmed one scene in that swimming pool. And as a result, it became known as the Esther Williams house. Go figure. Here's Alfonso Bell, the founder of Bel Air, and his wife, Nineveh. So they built what I think was the most magnificent of founders' houses, and just as to nod towards architecture and interior design, I thought you'd like to see some images of Alfonso Bell's house when it was called Capo di Monte, and it was at the top of Bel Air Road. So these are just some images of what this house looked like at the very early part of the 20th century. Living room, dining room. More dining room? Maybe there was more than one. Gloomy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Bedroom. Child's room. My favorite, the bathroom. This was the home of the man who imagined Bel Air. And I thought, let me keep looking at these houses. Let me see how they tell the story. Let me look at these chains of ownership. And so I had to look at the lives of the founders. And I did learn that Charles Canfield, for instance, who had died in about 1912 before Beverly Hills was a success, he never lived in Beverly Hills, but several of his daughters played very important roles in the foundation of the Platinum Triangle. This is Daisy Canfield. Now, Daisy actually owned Capo di Monte before Alfonso Bell did. She met a young man from downtown Los Angeles named Jake Danziger when she was 16 and he was 19. And they eloped. They ran off to the East Coast where they got married, and instead of disowning them, their families actually embraced the couple. And Charles Canfield, who was Edward O'Heny's partner in the oil business, gave Jake a job, and his gratitude to Jake was quite unlimited. Jake ended up a very important person running the Canfield business interests. But Jake's gratitude to his father-in-law was a little limited. His father-in-law wanted Jake and Daisy to live in Beverly Hills, but he expected Jake to pay the price that Rodeo was asking for the land. And Jake thought that was too expensive, and instead he bought a vast acreage, 2,000 acres of little still ranch just next door, for a fraction of what his father-in-law's partners would have charged him. And he would brag about it for the rest of his life, how he had stunk the old man. And that property, those 2,000 acres, are today Bel Air. But at first, it was the 2,000-acre estate of Jake, with Charles Stanfield, of Jake and Daisy. They called it La Quinta, and they built a 35-room mansion there. Sadly, Jake had a wandering eye, and things didn't work out too well for them, but let me come back to that in a second. Right around the same time, a man named Harry Lombard, a Boston banker, who came west to retire, built a house called Shadow Hill in Beverly Hills. Shadow Hill was later renamed Gray Hall. And Lombard, at a certain point in a real estate transaction I was never able to unlock, traded it to a fellow named Silsby Spaulding, who was married to Daisy Canfield's sister, Carrie Canfield Spaulding, that's her. And he traded it for a house in Beverly Hills Flats. I was never able to figure out why. And in between the two owners, it was sublet to a fellow named Douglas Fairbanks. Now, this is where the movie stars come in and become very important, because the original founders of Beverly Hills and of Bel Air barred movie stars. They were not allowed. And it was a hard and fast rule. And Fairbanks was playing tennis at Beverly Hills Hotel one day, and was complaining to the owner, Stanley Anderson, of the Beverly Hills Hotel, that he was about to leave his wife. He was having a quiet affair with an actress named Mary Pickford, and that he needed a place, he needed a little bolt hole somewhere where he could live while he got divorced. And it was Anderson who brought Fairbanks to either Lombard or Spaulding, and Fairbanks sublet Shadow Hill, built a tunnel across the street and up the road to the house that he had, a little hunting lodge that he transformed into Pickfair, where he would eventually marry Mary Pickford and create the Royal Court of Beverly Hills. But he wasn't actually welcome at first, and the first night he spent in Shadow Hill, he got phone calls telling him to get the hell out. And he called Stanley Anderson the next day and he said, "I can't do this, they don't want me here." And Stanley Anderson had the foresight to see that this was going to be a turning point in the history of this community. And he called together the community leaders, and he basically said, "Leave Doug Fairbanks alone. We need to sell real estate, and the way to do it is to have him live at Pickfair," what became Pickfair. And thus, Doug Fairbanks and Mary Pickford created Pickfair, became, in essence, the king and queen of Beverly Hills. Moved out of Shadow Hill, moved into Pickfair. Silsby Spaulding and Carrie Spaulding moved into Shadow Hill. Silsby Spaulding became the first president and then the first mayor of Beverly Hills. Lived there for many, many years. Many great stories in the book. I won't bother you with all of them, but my favorite is that Sil Spaulding used to get so drunk that he would sometimes lock himself in his own wine cellar. And so he installed an alarm system that went straight to the Beverly Hills Police Department so they could come and lock the door. Now, Pickfair didn't make the cut in the book. I didn't write about Pickfair, in part because Pickfair was too well known, in part because it had a lousy chain of ownership that just didn't interest me very much and didn't reveal very much about the story of the community, and in large part because it was desecrated by subsequent owners and it's not the same house. But I also decided that I wanted to do another house, and that was the house of Harold Lloyd, called Green Acres. That's the gates of Green Acres today. And yes, I like the story of Harold Lloyd, who lived there for a very long time and had a very colorful story. But again, I chose it because of who would own it later. When Lloyd died, it was sold to some of the earliest Persians in Beverly Hills, who never occupied it or subdivided the estate, and then sold the main house to a kind of shyster record company guy, a classic LA character named Bernie Solomon, and his wife Donna Powell, who was a person who felt that owning trophy real estate would make her a very important person in Beverly Hills. Instead, it made her a very controversial person in Beverly Hills, and some a pariah, which only goes to show you that owning the stuff doesn't necessarily make you a trophy yourself. And when the Solomons got divorced, mostly because Bernie didn't want to live the grand life in Green Acres and Donna did, they sold it to Ted Field, the Marshall Field there. And Ted Field later sold it to Ron Burkle, who owns it today. And that's the kind of chain of ownership that really fascinated me. Again, back to movie stars. Originally, I was going to do Six Tower Road, this is the property today, the Six Tower Road. Six Tower Road was originally King Theodore's house, the director, and he sold it to John Barrymore, and John Barrymore lived there until he basically lost his career, lost his money, lost his sanity. And over the years, Barrymore sold off pieces of that house, and the property was split up over and over again. And as I put together the chain of ownership, I realized that it seemed like half of Hollywood had lived on this property. Everyone from Candy Bergen to Alice Cooper. But frankly, dealing with Hollywood PR people is my personal idea of hell. And so as I was trying to reach some of the people who own these properties and was getting shot down by Hollywood PR people, I had a conversation with someone who said, you know, you really shouldn't do this house. You should focus on houses that matter socially, that matter in a larger sense. And they pointed out to me that that the Doheny House, Greystone, now a public park in the property of Beverly Hills, had been had a great story. It was built by Edward Doheny, the old man, and Charles Canfield's partner. On the lower portion of his ranch, which he had put together over the years, that went straight up into the hills. And he split off this rather large estate. He built a mammoth house there for his son, Ned. And it was the site almost immediately after Ned and his family moved in of Ned's death under very mysterious circumstances. He was found lying with a gun and his male secretary in one of the lower bedrooms of the house. The murder's never been solved. We don't even know if it was a murder, whether it was double suicide, whether it was a lover's quarrel, whether there was blackmail going on. Totally unknown. And there's something really fascinating about that house, which is that Ned's wife. Now, if your husband was killed in your house, in cold blood, would you stay there? No. Well, Lucy stayed there for 25 years. And that's the kind of story that interests me, even if I can't figure out why. Eventually, about 25 years later, Lucy decided to downsize. She sold the ranch above Greystone to a developer, and it became Truesdale Estates. And on a knoll, just to the side of Greystone, she built another house called the Knoll, which was also a gigantic mammoth house. I'm sorry, I don't have a picture of it. Hardly downsizing to anyone normal. And that house then became the home of Kenny Rogers, Dino De Laurentiis, and Barbara and Martha Davis, which is the reason that I decided to write about Greystone and Knoll, because Barbara and Martha Davis, when they came to California from Colorado, when Davis bought 20th Century Fox, were the people who, for the first time since really the Depression, revived the grand style of living in the old movie stars. And this was a case of a fellow who bought a movie studio as a toy, not a movie mogul who cared about movie stars, but a man who cared about money, and the movie stars were just the icing on the cake. And so I gave up on Six Tower Road, and I decided to write about Greystone and the Knoll instead. That was one of my favorite houses, and it's also where Beverly Hills, the city was gracious enough to allow me to have a book party. Just below it is actually the house that's my favorite house in the book, because each and every single owner of that house was intimately tied to the narrative of real estate. And that house is 9481 Sunset, which sits between mountain and mountain on the north side of Sunset. That house was built, and the reason why I was attracted to it was built by a Spanish land grant family. And this was all originally Spanish and Mexican land grants. The family was called the Botilliers. And this is what Beverly Hills looked like in 1927 as that house was being built. I have a series of these construction photos to show you. The Botilliers had come to California on the original Anza expedition that opened up this whole area. They got land grants in, I believe, Monterey Peninsula and in the Coachella Valley. became immensely wealthy. And the generation before the generation that built this house owned a whole huge chunk of downtown LA. And when the old man, Dionisio Botelier, who was a city councilman of Los Angeles and a very important man in the city, died, his widow decided to build this house for herself and her children. And she had 3 kids, 2 daughters and a son, none of whom ever married. All of them lived together. And over the course of their life in this house, it deteriorated, as did, I think, their sanity. And at a point in the 1950s, the house was finally put up for sale after the last Botelier who lived there had died, and the other 2 siblings decided to sell it. And it was sold to the next generation of Beverly Hills founders. It was sold initially to Burton Green's eldest daughter, Dolly Green, who I came to think of as the Platinum Triangle princess. This is Dolly in her later years. Dolly was an incredible character who really spanned the whole history of the Platinum Triangle. The thing that I found so interesting about Dolly was her secret social life. Because what I discovered was nobody knew that Dolly Green, very few people knew that Dolly Green had ever owned that house on Sunset. She only owned it for 2 weeks. And then she sold it for precisely what she paid for it to a gentleman named Neil McCarthy. Allegedly because the traffic noise on Sunset was too loud for her and she couldn't sleep in bedroom. But in fact, she was in love with Neil McCarthy, who was a married lawyer who had come to Los Angeles from Arizona, where he had driven stagecoach during his college summers. And he stumbled into representing movie stars and movie moguls. He ended up Howard Hughes' lawyer, Louis B. Mayer's lawyer, Cecil B. DeMille's lawyer, the go-to guy for every movie star who wanted to get divorced in Hollywood. And the problem was that Neil McCarthy was a devout Roman Catholic and very married. And Neil McCarthy was not going to get a divorce, even though he met Dolly during World War II when she was volunteering at a Red Cross clinic downtown, and they started having a hot and heavy love affair. And so Dolly went through all of these cartwheels to try and get Neil to get divorced and marry her, one of which was selling him 94 on Sunset for $50,000. Then there was Dolly's secret love child. Now, how I found this out was Dolly and her 2 sisters, Bertie and Lily, inherited a company from their dad when he died at something like 90. And it was called Bellridge Oil. And in the 1980s, Bellridge Oil was sold to, I believe, Texaco in what was then the largest corporate transaction in world history. And Dolly and her 2 siblings each ended up with a $250 million fortune. And during the course of the research, I was really curious as to where that money ended up. And Bertie's fortune made the LA Times when she gave it away. Everyone knew she gave it to charity. She did wonderful things with it. She started a foundation. Lily Orr's charity gave away the $250 million, huge headlines in the LA Times. But I couldn't find a word about what happened to Dolly's $250 million. And I started looking for tracks, and I discovered that there's a Dolly Green ophthalmological chair at the Jules Stein Eye Hospital, and there was a Dolly Green Equine Foundation. And I'm scratching my head, and this was before I knew about the affair with Neil McCarthy. What did Dolly Green have to do with horses? And in fact, in an article in the New York Times that I found, the Times, in its infinite wisdom, said that Dolly Green never had anything to do with horses until very late in her life. So why was she giving money to the Equine Foundation? And I told a fellow there, and he said, oh, a will contest. And I said, will contest? And he said, oh yeah, there was this woman who claimed to be Dolly's illegitimate daughter, and she held up the distribution of our money. It took us years to get it. And then I became very obsessed with finding out about this story. That's Neil McCarthy, by the way. Handsome guy, isn't he? The McCarthy salad at the Polo Lounge is named for him. I found in Oregon a woman named Diane Stockmar, who claimed to be the illegitimate child of Neil and Dolly. And I was skeptical at first, I have to admit. And I was skeptical even as she told me the story of growing up and how Dolly, when Neil still refused to marry her after having a child, basically threw her out with the trash, put her up for adoption, sent her away, then had remorse and brought her back as Aunt Dolly and became her best friend until she went to college, and even went to her wedding, and to prove it to me, she sent me a wedding photo. Now that's Diane sophomore on the left, Dolly in the middle, and Dolly's sister Bertie on the right. And when I saw the resemblance between Diane and Dolly, I thought, oh my God, this is true. And Diane knew so much about Dolly and so much about Neil. And then I began asking questions, and I discovered that indeed the lives of the Green sisters were far more complicated than anyone ever knew. Each of them had died in a form of misery. And I realized that just as in New York, wealth does not necessarily bring happiness. Dolly died regretting having had the child and putting the child up for adoption. Bertie died a drunk and a wreck. Lily died a recluse. And yet, they had these incredible lives in Los Angeles. And one of the things that I loved about learning about these people was that they often moved from house to house. And Dolly lived in a number of, Dolly moved all the time. When Neil was living on Sunset, Dolly lived right behind him on a mountain. He would have just had to cut through one house's backyard to go see his lover. Dolly's last house was an amazing house. She married a German Mexican named Heine Shandubi on the rebound from Neil McCarthy. Heine was a very interesting character. His father had been accused of being an agent for the Kaiser during World War I. Heine was accused of being a Nazi sympathizer during World War II. He founded the first Mexican airline. Came to LA where his dear friend Fernando Corbright, the owner of briefly the Beverly Hills Hotel and the founder of the Beverly Wilshire, a second owner of the Beverly Wilshire, introduced him to Dolly Green, who he thought Heine would get along with. And they moved into a home in Bel Air that had an amazing history. It had been built by a Fox executive and was later occupied or owned by a character actor named Reginald Owen, a charlatan who called himself a metaphysician named Anthony Marvell, who I found out had several convictions for fortune-telling on his record. He used to rent Carnegie Hall and give speeches about, Dale Carnegie like speeches on how to improve your life and how to read minds and things like that. He, for the rest of his life, claimed that there was a plaque in his honor in the lobby of Carnegie Hall. There isn't. Elvis Presley rented this house. Dolly would love to tell the stories about Elvis Presley's pet monkeys and how they ran around the house. Prince Rainier of Monaco rented the house when he was courting Grace Kelly. But then Dolly bought it and lived in it first with Heine, and then after they were inevitably divorced alone until her death. And just to give you an idea of the opulence, Dolly's favorite colors, can you guess what they were? Red and gold. This is Dolly's house. Isn't that wonderful? I kind of like this room. And how could anyone not want to swim in that pool? Dolly's, really, as I said, Dolly's story was tragedy, as were the stories of several of the Bells, one of whom, the daughter in-law, had something like 7 or 8 husbands and died a miserable drunk, and then the Bell family basically lost all of its money. The Jans family ended in a horrible family dysfunction, with any number of members of the Jans family committing suicide, and the family also lost its money in the end. It all proved, of course, that history inevitably moves away from the founders of these communities. But even as history moves away, it doesn't mean tragedy is over. And this is, again, a story that I learned from Jeff Hyland. One of the few houses that was built in Bel Air during the Depression was built by this lady, Hilda Olson Bolt Weber. Hilda Olson was a nurse in New York, and she nursed a fellow named Charles Bolt after he had a heart attack. Bolt owned a bottle-making company in Muncie, Indiana, I believe, multi-millionaire, and he fell in love with his nurse, Hilda, And together they moved to California, where they decided that they were going to find a new life and enjoy society. And they bought a house in Benedict Canyon, only LA society didn't embrace them. So they moved away, I think, to Santa Barbara, where they bought a mansion, only Santa Barbara didn't embrace them. Bolt then died. Hilda inherited millions just at the beginning of the Depression. And she decided that she was going to come back to the Platinum Triangle and prove everybody wrong. She was going to become the queen of society. And she bought a hilltop plot overlooking the Bel Air Country Club, where she built probably, I think, one of the greatest houses. John, I wonder if you agree with this. I showed you the closed gates earlier. This is a photo of it. It didn't have a name when Hilda owned it. Conrad Hilton named it Casa Encantada, or Enchanted House. Hilda spent so much money on this house that she ended up broke, spent millions building the house. And when she finally ran out of money, she sold it to Conrad Hilton, but only after he negotiated her down to $225,000. And Hilda was so destitute from having spent money on this house, having parties that cost $50,000 in this house. There's a wonderful photo that I couldn't bring you today that appeared in the LA Times of her housewarming with these grand dames of Los Angeles society standing in front of the house, all with their noses up in the air and this look on their faces like they had just smelled a baby's diaper, having visited Hilda's house. Hilda was never accepted. She took the $225,000 from Conrad Hilton, and she apparently gambled and drank it away. Having lived like this, she moved into a tiny cottage sublet in Santa Barbara with her second or third husband, who had been the chauffeur and butler here. And she finally committed suicide and was found the eerie echo of the last couple of days. She took a bunch of pills and she died in the bathtub in complete misery. But that story was fascinating because of its Gothic nature. But what's fascinating about this house is what it's come to mean in Los Angeles, and also how it illustrates how there are very few degrees of separation among the homeowners of the Platinum Triangle. And this was one of the things that I was hoping was going to happen as I researched the book, and I found that it did happen in spades, was that I discovered connections between the houses. This house was sold to Hilton, who sold it to David Murdoch. The estate sold it to David Murdoch that had Dole Pineapples and Castle and Cook, the real estate company, who sold it, as I said, to Gary Winnick, who walked away from the classic global crossing with several $100 million. What's fascinating is that here's Paris and Baron Hilton, her grandfather. Paris Hilton was not the first member of the Hilton family to misbehave here. In fact, her Baron's brother, Nicky, was really a far more notable reprobate in this area. He was famous for marrying Elizabeth Taylor when she was about 19, but he went on to become a tabloid favorite, getting into bar fights, being a drunk, marrying multiple times. I mean, Paris has a lot to live up to. And so there was this lingering legacy of the Hilton family in Los Angeles, but what I didn't realize until I began researching the book was how many connections there were, because if you read the page 6 history of Paris, what you discover is that her best frenemy is a kid named Brandon Davis, whose parents, Marvin and Barbara Davis, both a novel, and Justin Murdoch, one of David Murdoch's sons, I think the only living Murdoch son, again, a family marked by tragedy. Justin Murdoch, in his 20s, appeared at golf clubs on Sunset Strip in a golf band as the horned, trident-carrying devil lead singer of the band, and he called himself Olympus Horn. And he ended up in page 6 not very long ago in a horrific sexual harassment suit, the details of which made John and Brett laugh backstage, where I think are a little bit too nasty to read here. And you know, they're all friends. They go to clubs together. You still read about them all together. Another house that was a real competitor to this the richest in terms of narrative was the one, again, I showed you Gay earlier, 141 South Carolwood, and also those two Sunset Boulevard houses, which actually sit exactly where Gloria Swanson or Desmond's house in Sunset Boulevard would have been had it existed. Remember the opening when William Holden is narrating and he talks about the 10,000 block of Sunset? That house would have been right between the properties that I'm writing about here. And that property, 141 South Carolwood today, was the house that the Hollywood Reporter chose to feature when they wrote about my book. And the reason why was because the three houses on that property were home to Rudy Valley, Marilyn Monroe, who lived in a guest house when the house was owned by Joe Skank. And according to most of her biographers, was there because she would pleasure Mr. Skank when he needed a little company. Tony Curtis owned the house for a while, and some of his paintings on the wall. This is my favorite picture of Tony Curtis in the house. Right there. Another house on the same property was owned by Jane Mansfield in her heyday. This is before it was furnished. That's Mickey Hargitay, her husband, and I think you can see his barbells as the only decor in the fireplace. But again, it wasn't the movie stars, as delicious as their stories were. It wasn't the movie stars who really interested me. It was the people that no one knew lived in these houses. Again, if you look at the lists of who lived in these houses, there are certain names that do not appear. In one of them, I was told with absolute assurance, Mama Cass of Mamas and Papas lived, and Ringo Starr of the Beatles lived, and I made the requisite phone calls. And Michelle Phillips, Mama Michelle, actually listed every single address where Mama Cass lived, and none of them were one of those houses on Sunset. Ringo Starr never lived in a house, but who did live in two of these houses were Bill Osko, who Joyce Haber of the LA Times named the boy prince of pornography. He made the first full-length, scripted, fictional porno movie in the 70s, became a multimillionaire, probably lost it all, and went to jail. And another of my favorite characters, the fellow on the left here. Charming, isn't he? Harold Greenland. Harold Greenland was a former carny who traveled around with carnivals, working what was called candy pitch in burlesque houses. Imagine if that man was walking the aisles here, offering to sell you a box of Cracker Jacks, and in one of those boxes of Cracker Jacks was priced worth far more than a box of Cracker Jacks would cost. And it would be something like a plastic whistle or a plastic wallet, which is how he learned the theatrical business. He became the owner of burlesque houses, segued into softcore porn, married a stripper, then married a second stripper, and it was the second stripper who convinced him to buy Jane Mansfield's house after Jane Mansfield's death. And that was because his stripper wife decided that if they bought that house, they would become stars of Los Angeles society. I don't think so. Greenland's first idea was, because he bought the house furnished with all of Jane Mansfield's stuff in it, that he was going to auction off her bras and panties. Luckily, the stripper wife thought that was a little tacky, and that didn't happen. Following the chain of ownership on Greenland was fascinating, because over the course of the next 5 or 6 years, the house seemed to change hands about 6 times. And it turned out that Harold Greenland was a guy who used to skim box office profits from his porno and burlesque theaters. And he was constantly running away from the IRS. And so he was hiding his assets. And he hid the house in the names of various fictional people, his lawyer, who also ended up going to jail. Greenland ended up going to jail just like his later neighbor, Bill Osko. But these are the kind of stories that truly fascinated me. And again, this led to what I found both the most sordid and the most interesting part of the history of the Platinum Triangle, the early 1970s, when these houses were all considered white elephants. No one could afford to live in them. No one wanted to live in them. And people like burlesque house owners, porn theater owners, came to own them. And 141 South Carolwood at that point was bought by a Middle Eastern Assyrian fellow named Ghazi Aida. Ghazi Aida was a kind of roadshow Adnan Khashoggi. He was a deal maker. He made defense deals. But he wasn't an arms dealer per se. What he did was he hooked up Saudis with American defense manufacturers, and he made deals. And he came to LA because he had a taste for young women. literally. Let me come back to that. Into his guest house moved a fellow named Steve Powers, who was a mansion redeveloper. A young fellow who had made a fortune selling penny stocks in the late 1960s, became Hugh Hefner's best friend, had a falling out with Hefner over a girl, and became a guy who bought mansions, threw parties in them, ensured that there were lots of young actress, model, whatevers who would do whatever if they met a rich guy in the houses, and then invited rich guys to come, hoping that he could sell them the houses. And he knew lots of girls, and Ghazi even wanted to know lots of girls, and Steve Powers became not a procurer, but the guy who introduced Ghazi to women. Powers was eventually superseded by a fellow named Vince Conti, who was Telly Savalas' best friend, had appeared as a minor character in Kojak, and was eventually convicted of procuring as a pimp. When Vince Conti got in trouble, he was supplanted by a woman named Heidi Fleiss. And when Heidi Fleiss got arrested, poor Ghazi had to go underground. And he eventually sold the house, moved to Monaco, whereas, best as I can tell, he is on his deathbed in a penthouse in one of the best buildings in Monaco. Well, let's go back to Steve Powers, because this again shows you the connections between the houses. Heidi Fleiss had, as a young woman, had an affair with a guy named Bernie Kornfeld. Bernie Kornfeld lived in that house Rahal that I told you about earlier, that house that Doug Fairbanks sublet and was then occupied for years by Carrie and Silsby Spalding. After Silsby Spalding died, Carrie sold the house. It was owned for about 10 years by a guy who wasn't terribly interesting, a family man, just a normal person. Believe it or not, occasionally normal people own these houses. That fellow sold it to a young actor who suddenly made a lot of money in Hollywood named George Hamilton. And George Hamilton lived there for a number of years with his brother, who was a decorator, and his mother, who was a hawker. And they spent so much of George Hamilton's money that every time he came home from making a movie, they would present him with bills and he would have to leave town and buy it and make another movie, and while he was gone, they would buy more furniture, because Bill was a decorator and an antique dealer, and he would come back and they would have spent his money again, and he would have to go out and make another movie, and finally Hamilton got very tired of this, and he decided to sell the house, and his brother and his mother completely had a meltdown, refused to let him sell the house, and he finally secretly decided to sell it, and he sold it to Bernie Kornfeld. Bernie Kornfeld was the fellow who basically invented the Overseas Mutual Fund. It was called Overseas Investor Services, and it collapsed in a gigantic scandal in about 1969-1970, when the markets all collapsed, and suddenly there was no money. And Kornfeld had always insisted that he didn't do anything wrong, that he sold the company to a man named Robert Vesco. Do you remember that name? The Richard Nixon contributor who ended up on the lam in Costa Rica and Cuba. And that it was Vesco who looted Overseas Investor Services, but nonetheless, Bernie Kornfeld was run out of France and Switzerland, where he lived for many years, and came to Beverly Hills, where he decided that he wanted to reinvent himself as Hugh Hefner. And he met Hefner, he'd seen Hefner's lifestyle, he liked Hefner's lifestyle, and he decided that he was going to come to Los Angeles and surround himself with beautiful women and live the life of a sybarite. And Steve Powers heard about Bernie Kornfeld because Steve Powers was this kind of penny-ante financial guy, and he wanted to be a bigger financial guy, and Bernie Kornfeld started throwing parties, and one day Steve Powers crashed through the hedges of Bernie Kornfeld's house, crashed one of his parties, became his best friend, and eventually tried to steal the house from him by loaning him money when Kornfeld inevitably ran out of money. They ended up in a Jarness versus Jarness court fight that went on for years and years and years, and finally resulted in that house being sold. It was sold to another mansion redeveloper who sold it to Mark Hughes, who ran Herbalife, the nutritional supplement company, or as some would put it, pyramid scam, who lived there for many years until his death from misadventures with substances. And it's now owned by two very quiet and incredibly lovely Persian people. Again, normal people sometimes buy these houses. But these bizarre connections, because Towers owned any number of houses around the area. He had been in the guest house of this house, in the guest suite of this other house. And these kind of connections are to me what animate the story about real estate. That's Steve Powers on the left, an unknown girl in the middle, Hugh Hefner, and on the right, Bernie Kornfeld. So these are the kinds of connections that I love, but there was actually one connection. Remember I said I wanted to come back to the house that went from the Beauvilliers to Dolly Green to Neil McCarthy. And that's this house again, 9481 Sunset. In the 70s, Neil McCarthy declined and died, and his second, he did finally, his first wife died. After his first wife died, he remarried to an artist. McCarthy died. His second wife lived on in this house for a while, and it grew so decrepit that there were bees. I mean, back in the time of the Beauvilliers, there were bees that took up residence in the woodwork. And McCarthy loved to wake up in the morning, make some toast, and scrape honey off the floor that had dripped from the ceiling, spread it on his toast, and eat his breakfast. And by the way, McCarthy, because the second floor bedroom was so noisy, McCarthy moved into the ballroom and never went upstairs, so the house decayed and decayed and decayed. And in the middle 70s, his second wife lived on the market, and it was bought by an incredible couple who became my favorite story in the book. They don't like the book very much, but on P, as they say. Their names were Stuart and Linda Resnick. And Stuart and Linda Resnick are very colorful characters in their own right. Stuart came from New Jersey, where his father was a sort of bar owner, junior Jewish mafiosi. He came out here, he went to UCLA. He put himself through UCLA. He started a janitorial company, which he grew into a security company, which he grew into a conglomerate. And along the way, he met this woman who called herself, whose name Linda Sine. Linda Sine had come from Pennsylvania, where her father was a movie distributor. And one day he got lucky and he co-produced a movie called The Blob, starring Steve McQueen. And with that triumph tucked in his belt, he moved to Beverly Hills, where his daughter was raised, and started a little advertising agency in the 60s, where she did kind of dolly bird ads for boutiques and things like that, and she was actively dating, and she had a husband, bad first marriage, marriage ends, and she's dating a friend of a fellow named Daniel Ellsberg of the Rand Corporation. And Linda Sine's first brush with fame came when she was called into court because the Pentagon papers were Xeroxed on her Xerox machine in her ad agency. It was shortly after that incident that she was set up on a meeting with a fellow who needed an advertising woman, Stuart Resnick. And they fell in love and they married and they proceeded to move from house to house to house until they graduated to the French Renaissance chateau. Built, by the way, by an architect named Francois Xavier Lordu, who had gotten his start at the firm that designed the Eiffel Tower. Just a silly little detail that I love. And the residents became, wanted to become social forces in Los Angeles. And over the years, they developed a salon, a liberal salon. They became great big Democratic Party contributors. Their house became a place where what passes for the intelligentsia of Hollywood would come. People like Laurie David, Rob Reiner, Penny Marshall, people like that, who would dine on their Louis the whatever silverware. Stuart's a little guy. He's got a great big statue of Napoleon in the house. He's got a Napoleonic complex. Linda has a towering pile of hair. Stuart calls Linda's bodice the girls. There are quite a couple there. But the thing that fascinated me about them was not their accumulation of wealth, which was staggering, was not the famous brands that they came to own. They're the people behind Fiji Water. They're the people behind Palm Wonderful, the pomegranate juice products. They owned the Franklin Mint. But what fascinated me about them was not the lawsuits that they would get into, because they were very feisty people. When they owned Franklin Mint, they put out a bunch of Princess Diana figurines. Linda would do things like buy the Duchess of Windsor's pearls at auction and then reproduce them in cheaper versions, which were sold through the Franklin Mint. I believe she bought one of the Princess of Wales' dresses and ended up in a catfight with the Princess of Wales Foundation. It went on for a very long time. And all kinds of dirt about the residents came out during this because they were considered to be just the most horrible people trying to commercialize the image of the late Princess Diana. All of these things, Fiji water, very controversial because it's supposed to be very ecological, but the cost of getting those plastic bottles from Fiji to America kind of cancels out all the good that they do. All of these things, fascinating, but the thing that fascinated me the most was their connection to the people who founded Beverly Hills, Home Hills, and Bel Air. Aspen. The residents have a summer house in Aspen, a weekend house in Aspen. And, you know, they're also very charitable people. They give away a lot of money. And this is what I found to be a really good thing about the residents, was they learned from their mistakes. Because in Aspen, they decided to give a bunch of money to the Aspen Institute. And in exchange for that, an auditorium at the Aspen Institute was going to be renamed for them. The problem was that that auditorium was called the Pepke Auditorium, and the Pepke family were the founders of modern Aspen. And the community rose up in protest, and this was one of the protests. The donation, can you see it? Yeah, $4.2 million there. You see elevation, $4.2 million. That was the donation to the Aspen Institute. It was going to get the Pepke Auditorium renamed for the residents. One of the really nice things about the residents is that they learn from their mistakes. You all know the resident pavilion at LACMA. You know, Eli Broad is a man who I admire greatly, one of the great philanthropists in America. But Eli Broad is what's called a venture philanthropist. He micromanages his donations. He wants to know where every penny is spent, and he's damn well going to oversee how it is spent. And many people feel that that is what philanthropy should be. The problem is if you're the recipient of that kind of philanthropy, you come to think of somebody like Eli Broad as a real pain. And the residents are competitors with Eli and Edie Broad. And so they came along and financed the other building at LACMA. And what they did was they said to LACMA, do whatever you want. And in return, they got the opening exhibition with some of their art. The problem is that the art critics of Los Angeles and really the rest of the world didn't think much of their art or of their building or of their philanthropy. But the reason for all of this is what I think was the biggest interesting secret about the residents, because they own citrus, almond, and pomegranate groves in a place called Kern County. And they are, I think, the number one or number two biggest agricultural producers in California. That's where the money really comes from. And they also own something called the Kern County Water Bank. The Kern County Water Bank was built with public funds. But the state of California ran out of the money, and so it was given to private people, including the residents. Basically, it's owned by a small consortium that is controlled by the residents. And what I love about the Kern County Water Bank is that Edward O'Meany, Charles Canfield, Burton Green, Max Whittier, where they all made their money was oil that came out of the ground in Kern County. And that same ground is where the residents now own the most valuable fluid in California, water. They control a huge amount of it. They're incredibly controversial as a result of it. But what I loved about them is that here they are sitting in their Sunset Boulevard mansion, entertaining movie stars, producers, the glittering people who we all think that Los Angeles is about. But where is their fortune based? Their fortune is not based in the Hollywood of celluloid and glamour. Their fortune is based in the California of dirt, oil, and water. And that, I think, is ultimately what I wrote a book about, what on real estate is about. Oh, you want to see the residents? There they are. That's Stuart on the left, Linda in the middle, and Barbara Davis, the widow of Marvin Davis on the right at a party a couple of years ago. And so the book ends on resonance, and I think it quite properly ends on resonance because the resonance are a couple in formation. And Los Angeles is still, as old as it is, a city in formation. And thank goodness that this is a city that's begun to appreciate its history. Los Angeles was always a city that everyone said had no history. But now there's a preservation movement here. Now there are people who care about the history of houses like this. And if on real estate did anything at all to help that process of understanding that this is a culture with roots, then I've done my job. And thank you all so much.